Good afternoon, Mena. How are you going?
Hi, Kate. I'm great. Thank you. Wonderful to catch up again.
Absolutely. Happy 2026.
Happy 2026 to you too.
And let's hope it is. Let's hope those are not empty words.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Hmm.
Very exciting.
Yeah, and Mina, you've been with us for quite a while now on SoulAdvisor with your business counseling confidence, and people can read all about you below. But I'd love to hear in your own words, just because we're talking astrology. I know you've got counseling and hypnosis, and goodness knows how many kind of deep dives you've done into anthropology and philosophy, and you're extremely well read. I know that for a fact. So you've drawn on a lot of different pathways, but why astrology and how have you got here? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, every astrologer has a story about how they came to astrology, and you get very excited and you talk for hours about it. Anyways, basically, for me, it was at a very low point in my life that astrology came into my life. And what happened, I started by looking at the moon. I sent off for an astrology chart. I didn't know anything about it. This goes back in the early 90s, in fact, when I first learned astrology. And I got a reading which had nothing to do with the chart. The chart was full of squiggles. Things were going wrong in my life. Everything was going wrong in my life at that point, or most things were. There's always something going right, isn't there?
Always.
Um, and I didn't understand it. And what this lady said was, "You're on the path of unconditional love."
Mm.
That's what she read in my chart. And I thought, well, that was a waste of money. I don't feel like I'm on the path of unconditional love. I just wanted solutions and I didn't feel it gave it to me. But the really interesting thing about it was I started to look at it and I had to work it out myself because no one told me. She didn't tell me what the squiggles were. She didn't write moon or sun or Venus against the squiggles. I had to work it out. So I started with the moon because I could recognize it. And I looked at how fast the moon moved. And this is one thing I've been able to share with many clients actually. When you're feeling the worst you feel, or just really bad, right? The moon moves a degree every 2 hours. So you know that if you can just wait 2 hours, you have to actually try to feel that bad in 2 hours' time.
Mm.
And that was such a gift. And I noticed it and I felt it. And I needed to know more after that,
Mm.
obviously. So, yes, I went through the what most astrologers will say, oh, you're a psychological astrologer. So, Liz Green, Faculty of Astrologers in London, amazing, amazing, and
Mm.
absolutely amazing to show you and to introduce you to the planets. And then I was also doing some mediumship. So there's a very esoteric connection,
Mm.
and I went into Kabbalistic astrology, and more recently over the years. And they are absolutely correct. A lot of Hellenistic and medieval astrologers would always say, "Oh, you psychological astrologers, you're not really doing astrology. You're doing psychology. You're doing well with your clients, but you're not really doing astrology." So I thought, okay, well, let's see what you've got. And I absolutely agree with them. We probably weren't. We were probably we are, but we were doing it with psychology. So
Mm.
we weren't doing it the pure astrological way. And since a project called Project Hindsight, that a lot of astrologers got together with a lot of different linguists, and they pulled out a lot of the Hellenistic texts and things and deciphered them. It's a huge subject. And so I started to learn that. So I learned that, and then Christian astrology. And I can definitely see. And so it has enriched what I
Mm.
have to offer. And for me, they all go together
Mm.
and they cover different things. But because of the psychology as well, I'm a businesswoman as well. We have family businesses, and I do use astrology every day, even if it's not for clients.
Mm.
So in with clients, it's very much about the psychology and the hypnosis. in my daily life, when I see things, I tend to think in astrology as well. So, and keep it very grounded. So
Mm.
I'm not here as just, and I don't want to say just, because this astrology is it is a science as well. There is so
Mm.
much to learn,
Mm.
but to make it more useful. So as in as a probably more of a solutions focused hypnotherapist, I want to
Mm.
find a solution. I want to find how astrology can help me, just like it did in the beginning.
Mm.
As a now combining it with hypnotherapy, there's really nothing that you can't look at.
Mm.
I want people to be able to go, wow, I thought that was terrible, but this is actually exciting my life. And I
Mm.
have all of these options now.
Okay. It's fabulous, isn't it? And you've been through your own journey of when you were at a low point and, and you found your way, dug your way out of that situation into where you're at now. So, I love that you're able to speak from experience. It just makes it all so much more, has more gravitas, definitely, when you're speaking to people. And that old adage, it never happens to you, it happens for you, even though it feels at the time like it's hell and high water. I think that's something that, in my very limited experience of astrology gives you, because you start to understand that, there's your stress, and here's how to step aside from it, look down, see exactly what you might be experiencing in terms of planetary movement, in terms of your astrology, and then what you are giving people are the tools to work with those moments in their lives and come out with something that's a gift. That's what I hear you saying. Yeah.
Absolutely. And,
Mm.
and I think I often think back of what that first astrologer said to me about being on the path of unconditional love. And I first realized, because astrology gives you compassion,
Mm.
because once you've seen enough people's charts and you
Mm.
see how different and unique every one of us is, it's almost impossible to get annoyed with someone who doesn't happen to share the same planetary ruler of the same house as you. It goes back to, well,
Yeah.
you're a complete mess. No, you are so anal, like, if it's in your household. So it just touches every part of your life. And
Yes.
then at the toughest times, as you say, you can detach. And then we have the tools of hypnotherapy, which are so fast, so incredibly fast, and available to every one of us because we do it naturally.
Yeah.
So I hope that, yes, but we'll go through that because we have this exciting thing that we're focusing on at the moment.
I think it's very important for people to understand, for those that don't already, a little bit about what you've just talked about, what astrology actually is, and that it's a grounded tool based in how many millennia. Anyway, so let's just get right into it. It's 2026, and our invitation to people is that they listen to this interview and that they then consider what their own rising sign is in their chart and how that interacts with the conjunction that you're going to talk about a little bit today. So, first of all, let's go right back to basics, thinking that perhaps people that listen to this have absolutely no idea about astrology. So, how does somebody cast their own or observe their own chart? How does that even work?
Okay. Well, basically, it's based on the math of where you were born, what time you were born, okay, and the date that you were born. If you don't have, if you've never done it before, there are a couple of very good sites. You can go to astro.com and
Mhm.
you can draw for yourself, cast your own chart. You just fill in your name. I think you have to register to do it on the site,
Mm.
and then you fill out the time of birth and the place of birth.
Mm.
Another site you can go to, astro-seek.com. And if you know more about astrology, there are a lot more fun tools on that site if you want to get more mathematical and more into some of the techniques, the timing techniques on that site. And there are an abundance of apps at the moment that you can download. And again, you just always need your time of birth and your place of birth. So you've got your coordinates and the year. So yeah, and I think you'll put that down in the bottom in the notes.
Yes, absolutely. We'll give all of those links in the notes so people can have a little experiment themselves. And then there's, of course, the possibility of going to an astrologer, i.e., yourself or anybody else that might be nearby, and actually working with that astrologer to understand and have their chart cast. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to come knock on that door and have it open.
There
Really.
are a lot of different ways. And once you have it open, there are also a lot of great astrologers free online through YouTube. So looking at different areas, different transits, some wonderful ones. I'm happy to refer a lot of them to. So
Yeah.
for different things. But if you have something personal going on in your life, then the way that I look at that with the astrology is to work it with the hypnosis, with the hypnotherapy. So, we can sit down, look at the chart, and, come up with the goods, basically. So we're all about solutions.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that about how you
Yeah.
grounded. It's not just for interest, it's actually, well, how do you progress? Okay, so talking about looking at somebody's chart,
Right.
then most people know their sign on the zodiac. So
Yeah.
perhaps you could explain a little bit about what a sun sign is, and then in the context, just very briefly,
Yeah.
and then maybe we can move straight into what a rising sign might be.
Okay. So if I can just share a chart, it's
Sure,
probably
please.
easier if I can show it. All right. So the zodiac, most people will know what their sun sign is. So if we have a look at this wheel here and we find the little sigil for the sun, which is the circle with the dot in right there. Can you see my
Yeah.
cursor? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then there's a little sigil underneath that, which is the sigil for Capricorn.
Huh.
So this, the baby born today at 1:43 p.m. will have a Capricorn sun.
Mm.
He or she will, and there probably is a baby born about now. There will be somewhere for sure, and they'll be waking up to being a Capricorn sun. And if this be in their chart, their sun will be in their ninth house. Now, we're not going to give a full astrology lesson today, but what we are going to do so that we can really get into the nitty gritty of the Saturn Neptune transit and perfection coming up in February.
Mm.
The most important thing is to know your houses.
Mm.
So we have a look and we see, okay, our houses will always start from number one, and number one will be our ascendant. So when you key in your time of birth, place of birth, and date of birth, you'll come up with your ascendant degree. Now, again, our little girl or boy born an hour ago, their ascendant here is 9 degrees of Taurus. That's 9 degrees. There's a little Taurus sign, the circle with the little horns for the bull, and then 11 minutes. That's what that means. Now, the ascendant here is the first house. This is the ecliptic here
Mhm.
from house one, going right across. So this is a Taurus rising. So they are a Capricorn sun, but they're a Taurus rising. And the rising sign will start the wheel for them. And this is they will say, okay, so I'm going to take on this world, and I'm looking out through the lens of Taurus, the bull, even though I am a Capricorn sun. Okay, so first house is about how they will approach life, the lens, the helm. How are we going to steer this journey? Right, we're going to do it this way. In the second house, if we just go through each house, so each bit of the 12-piece pizza, we can call it a big pizza with 12 pieces cut. So the first house is our helm, our journey, how we're going to steer our life. The second house now is our house of resources. So it's our money, our finances, often will always show up in the second house.
Mm.
Our third house is our communication, how our siblings. So how we're communicating with our environment, our routine environment, if you like. Okay, so journalism would fall in the third house. Someone with a very active third house here might have a lot to do with journalism in some way. Someone in the ninth house opposite may publish books. They may be an author. So the opposite houses will be related in some way, as you'll see, and we call that an axis. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the fourth house now is our house of home. It's our foundation. What our parents were like, basically. Our mum and dad are often found in the fourth and 10th house.
Mm.
Just the little things, I won't go through the planets and the points, other than the ascendant. We can talk about some of those as we go through talking about Saturn and Neptune. For now, I'm just going to keep moving around the houses. So the fourth house is your base. The fourth house is your home, right? The fifth house then is your house of children, your creativity, your house where you create, maybe you create art. Some dedicated sports people have very active fifth houses where their sport becomes their art form. But very much it's about your children, very much. The sixth house is the house of illness. It's also the house of employment, not self-employment, not your career, not your public standing. That belongs in the 10th. It's very much a service, okay? So illness, service, employment. The seventh house is the house of marriage, the key relationship that you will have, or relationships that you have. And they can be business partners, but they're very important partnerships. Okay. The eighth house is now the house of partner's money. See, it's opposite your money. There's your money in the second. Your partner's money is in the eighth. It'll show up in the eighth. In the eighth is also the house of inheritances. It's also the house of debt, and it's the house of death as well. The ninth house, and you can see how the house of death can be linked to inheritances. So there is a logic, but there's a lot to fit in. It's your whole life, so there's a lot to fit in. The ninth house then becomes the house of higher learning. So your primary school will be in the third house. What it was like for you in early school years with the neighborhood kids. And then in the ninth house, you've ventured out. Perhaps you've gone to university. Perhaps you're doing law. It's the house of, you can find law there. You'll find religion there, philosophy. You'll find astrology belongs in the ninth house. The 10th house then is a career. You can see my cursor?
Yes,
still
okay.
Yeah, great. So the 10th house is the house of your public standing, how people will see you up there. It's the highest house of the chart. And so you will find a lot of people who maybe are quite famous, or you're seeing them all the time. They might have some authority. I think some of the great dictators of our time have been in the 10th house, but some amazing people. Everything in the chart, it's no right or wrong in a chart. It's just showing you, and what you do with it then becomes your story. So that's the 10th house, the highest house. Now the 11th house is where it used to be called the house of the common people. So it would be the house of socialization. It'll be the house of groups. If you belong to an association, that will be in the 11th house. So you've come from, maybe you've done something yourself, but now you're a part of a group. So you're helping others. You've formed something. It's also the house of hopes, dreams, and wishes. So it's got a lovely energy, the 11th house.
Okay.
Now we have the 12th house is the house of the occult, hidden things that are hidden. Now, our subconscious, from where our motivations come out of the 12th house. We don't always know why we do things. A study of your 12th house can elucidate a lot of that. The 12th house is also, because it's hidden, we think about places that are hidden. So perhaps if you're convalescing in a hospital, you're away from society for a while. You're in the room, you're hidden. So hospitals fall under the 12th house. Sometimes they come into the 6th house of illness, but when you think about them being in isolation, hidden, that's the 12th house. So jails can be a 12th house. So you're starting to get that. So the subconscious, the occult matters, metaphysics, if you like, in some ways. Yeah. So we've got a couple of those, those things sort of going on. So I think what astrology, as I was saying in the opening, what's so fascinating about getting to know your houses and where they sit and what sign sits on them. So, for instance, in this sign, in the third house of communication, how we might speak, here we have Cancer. So you would expect Cancer is a very nurturing sign. So you might expect someone, and especially here with Jupiter, this is a sigil for Jupiter, who is a major benefic. And the condition of Jupiter, I won't go right into it, but Jupiter loves being in Cancer. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. And Jupiter can say, oh, you can just imagine this little girl or boy born with this Jupiter in Cancer in the third house is going to be wonderful to have around and listen to. You know, and there will be a softness. It's a, you know, Cancer's a water sign. So there's this beautiful emotion. So lovely. That will be a real, you know, something for them to cultivate and something they'll be able to use in times when they may need to be able to do that or may want to share that with others. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so you've got your 12 houses, which is paints a picture of who you're going to, how you will chart. Basically, it's your chart which tells you how you're going to chart the waters of your own life, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah.
And every area of your life is not always active. So you can imagine, you know, if you're getting ready to get married, you're probably not, you probably don't care too much about your religion. Or maybe you do. Maybe that's not a good example because marriage is a sacrament, you know, and very important. Let's say maybe you don't care too much about what your siblings are doing if you've got your siblings in the third house, because it's all about you at the moment. But maybe later on, once you've been married, and then all of a sudden one of your you've got a transit to your third house, maybe your attention will turn to that third house because your brother or sister needs something.
Got it.
You want to be there to help them. But you can't, you're not living, you know, not everything is happening to you every day.
Okay, I understand, and I hope everyone else does too.
Okay.
Right. So all of these particular signs, we're talking today about our rising sign, which is your ascendant. Is that correct? Or not?
What we're talking about today is the Saturn Neptune movement. So the first, I'll bring up Neptune ingress into Aries. Can you see this chart?
Yes.
Neptune ingress into Aries. So this, again, I'm just using a whole sign chart, which is just 0 degrees to 30 degrees, and then it changes to 0 again. So I've just got one sign. We call these cusps, the cusp of each house. And I've got one sign showing on at the start of every house. It's just a lot easier when you, it's a lot easier to have our discussion using the whole sign system. Now, this little sigil here is Saturn at 28 degrees of Pisces. Neptune on the 27th of January will ingress into Aries. You can see Neptune there at 0 degrees of Aries, correct?
Yep.
Right. Ignore that little ascendant at the moment because we're just interested in this. So Neptune, for whoever this individual is, Neptune was in the 12th house, remember, of the occult, hospitals, you know, things that your subconscious, things that you're not really aware of.
Yes.
And Neptune and Saturn have been going through Pisces. Neptune's been in Pisces for 14 years. The planets move at different rates. Saturn will spend about 2.5 years in each sign. So we've had 2.5 years of Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn is still in Pisces just at the moment. Neptune is still in Pisces. They're right on the edge. Now, astrology happens, you look at events. So psychological astrologers will look at the psychology all the time, but nobody is just a psychological astrologer or just a, you know, an event astrologer, predictive astrologer. Most astrologers these days will know more and not just speak in sections. So when we're looking at this, and we're using the house system to talk about these events have been taking place in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and what happens on the cusp when you first enter, and we say ingress into a sign, that's going to be pivotal. And then at the last degree, the 28, 29 degrees of a sign, that will also be pivotal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the reason that, so this will stay in Pisces. So this individual has had Saturn and Neptune. If you're a rising Aries,
Mm-hmm.
you will have had Saturn and Neptune in your Pisces house, in your 12th house of hidden things, your subconscious.
Mm.
So Neptune for the last 14 years has been working in the background for you.
Mm.
Now, maybe it can manifest in many different ways, but it's going to keep that theme of that house. So that theme of Saturn and Neptune, for Neptune, 14 years. Now, if you, let's say this individual has Saturn sitting there in their natal chart, and they've had Neptune enter and come in, for a number of years, they would have been dealing with a Neptune-Saturn transit, really. They've been dealing with those energies.
Mm.
Oh, sorry, for the last 2.5 years, because Saturn would have only been there 2.5 years. They would have already been dealing with that. Okay. And if it was also their natal chart, they would be having a Saturn return at the same time.
Right.
Because Saturn would have gone all the way around and back.
Okay.
Which is, yeah. Okay. So everything would be sort of playing out in that 12th house. So these are the things that we wanted to start looking at today. Now, as Neptune comes into the first house, all of a sudden, a lot of that fog in your mind has been released. Because now Saturn is still sitting there, and Saturn is very much about reality. Saturn is manifest. So Saturn is there, but Neptune, the fog has lifted. And if anyone has been doing much astrology and they can recall their Neptune transits to their personal planets, for instance, if Neptune transits your moon, sometimes it's very hard to hold your thoughts. Because a lot of our decisions are made from an emotional perspective.
Okay.
They've done many tests in psychology to show, where someone's lost part of, had an accident with a part of their brain, and all of their cognitive associated faculties have worked perfectly. There's nothing wrong, but the emotional thing hasn't. There's a story that Mark Terrell, who is my mentor in hypnotherapy, tells, and it's also that comes from a book. And Ian McGilchrist did all this research into this, and he tells the story that so they've done the study. The guy, it's his emotional section that is having a problem. He's perfectly logical, but he can't even make a decision about what socks to buy or what time to meet, because everything is infused with an emotion in terms of our decision-making process. Right. And this comes back to why hypnotherapy works, why hypnosis works, because we don't behave according to logic. That's why we do things like smoke or drink too much coffee, because we know logically why would we do it.
Yeah.
But there's an emotional component. So if you have a Neptune clouding your moon, that's a really confusing time, because that can then affect even your decision making.
Okay.
Right. So when we're dealing with your subconscious, and if you're a rising Aries, now it could manifest that something like maybe you've just spent a bit of time in jail with Neptune and Saturn sitting there in your 12th house for the last 2.5 years. And now you're getting out. Astrology can be that literal.
Okay.
But it'll still follow the theme. So it'll follow the theme. So that's where it becomes helpful, because once you start to look at these things, you can detach long enough to see what's going on in your own life. And so all of a sudden, it's not that you're helpless. You're not helpless because you recognize the energies that are also a part of you. And you know that it's not going to last forever, which is always very nice to know and remember. And you have some control, and you go, oh, that's the problem. Okay, I'm just a bit cloudy. I'm not crazy. I've just got a Neptune transit going on at the moment. Well, okay, so maybe if you can't deal with it, maybe you love to paint. Maybe you should be just utilizing another area of your life, which you can also see in your chart, and go, well, I've been meaning to paint, learn how to paint, how to do art. I love craft or whatever, and so maybe now's the time to do that. So, we can move our lives events around to suit the energies. If it's raining one day, you can't go out and sunbathe. You're not going to get your beach towel and lay on the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this, all of these things, I mean, it's a vast, there's a lot, but it can be that simple, as I was saying in the opening, just tracking your moon and tracking those planets that you really resonate with, and understanding what houses they are activating for you and how they're playing out enables you to have a wonderful voyage of self-discovery, which is what astrology is, know thyself. And you start to go, wow, I didn't know I had that in me.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm pretty interesting. And then you look at someone else with it, and maybe they don't have Aries on their ascendant, or they haven't had, they haven't had a Neptune in their Pisces. Maybe their Neptune was over here in Sagittarius, and they've just been gallivanting around the place, and I don't know, making film while traveling.
It gives a rich tool, doesn't it, to really look at things. So is the Saturn Neptune conjunction a time-based thing, or is it a different time for everybody, or what does it mean? When does
Okay,
it?
so you have all of your placements in your natal chart.
Yep.
That will stay with you through life. So they are there. That is static. That chart is a static chart.
Yeah.
Now, the planets are moving all the time. So if I animate this, right, so you see the moon moves the fastest. I'm moving one day at a time at the moment.
Okay.
So in one day, Venus is moving about a degree a day. Venus is similar to the sun. Mercury is a little faster. Mars spends about 2 months in a sign. Saturn takes 2.5 years in a sign.
Okay.
These are approximate. Neptune is 14 years. Pluto's 20. So we've just had the 2008 until Pluto moved into Aquarius. So about 20 years.
Okay.
So all of these things are periods in your life. So if we go back, do you want to see that? So if you have this little sigil here is Saturn.
Yeah.
It's on 6 degrees of Aries.
Yeah. Got it.
This is the Neptune at 2 degrees of Aries.
Right.
Right. If I move that ahead, so let's go a month, right? Right. Now Saturn is at 10 degrees of Aries, but Neptune's only at 3. So Saturn is going to move away from Neptune. And in about 36 years' time, Saturn will come back and meet Neptune again.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And it will happen in a different house.
Yeah.
Now, the significance of what's happening with Saturn and Neptune to perfect at 0 degrees of Aries is very much like, I hate using the term reset because of obvious political connotations, but Aries is the first sign. At 0 degrees of Aries is a world point. So that's why we are all, if Saturn is reality, Neptune is confusion, to be very crude about it.
Yeah.
And it's on a world point.
Okay.
In a Mars sign, we have a concoction. We have a recipe for disaster, or we have a recipe to grow something amazing.
So, Mena, I'm beginning to understand a little bit more. And I understand that there's a Saturn Neptune conjunction that's going on because in it it takes Saturn 2 years, 2.5 years to move through a house. It takes Neptune 14 years, but at this point they're both traveling together. Is that correct? And so if that's true, when has that happened in the past, or what can we learn historically?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. So, some key transits
Mm,
for Saturn and Neptune historically,
yeah.
because Neptune is often called an outer planet, and many astrologers believe that the outer planets more appropriately dictate larger contexts rather than within our individual lives.
Okay.
Um, I don't completely agree with that because I have a lot of Pluto in my chart and it's very personal. So, yeah, and I think that's probably more the psychological astrologer coming out in me.
Yes.
I work a lot with the outer planets.
Okay.
Okay. But that doesn't mean that they're not collected, which they absolutely are, and especially when they're on significant points. So,
Mm.
if we go back for a couple of examples, there are two I'd like to share with you today. Number one, most people will remember the fall of the Berlin Wall,
Hard to forget if you're my
right?
age.
1989.
Hmm.
Now, the interesting thing that happened there, we did also have Uranus in the mix. So we had a triple conjunction with that. But
Mm.
let's just focus on the Saturn Neptune for that, because maybe some of the listeners today actually have a Saturn Neptune conjunction if they were born in 1989.
Hmm.
They will be born with this. So they're going to really feel, and they will have been feeling this
Mm.
at least the last year,
Okay.
right? Okay. So what happened in 1989? You had a real structure.
Mm.
Saturn is about systems, and the structure was here's the east, here's the west. Never the twain shall meet. This
Mm.
is the system here, this is the system there.
Mm.
Neptune, now all of a sudden, Neptune's coming in clouding. Now, I'm sure there was a lot of intrigue around that.
Mm.
Uranus just went whack, but it was dissolved. So Neptune will dissolve.
Mm.
So that was a huge thing because we were dealing with those energies. These are very, and now the other thing I want to talk about is 1917, another Saturn Neptune conjunction.
Right.
Now, Neptune is about confusion.
Mm.
Okay. How can we confuse people and why do we want to confuse people? Now, if Saturn is a system and we want to change a system,
Mm.
we can use confusion to dissolve that system to create another one.
Mm.
In hypnotherapy, whether it's stage hypnosis or in a session, right? One of the ways to hypnotize someone is to use confusion. Another way is to use shock. So if you go to a stage show where someone's been hypnotized, you'll see them pushing the people down quickly, and you can see them go like that, can't you?
Yeah.
So they're shocking them so they can then give them a suggestion, and the suggestion will take hold.
Right.
Advertising works the same way. So
Mm.
you get people excited or shocked, and then all of a sudden the suggestion comes through.
Mm.
It's a bit more subtle, so you need more repetitiveness.
Okay. Yep.
So Neptune is confusion. Saturn is the system that's in place. Okay. So Saturn can systemize Neptunian confusion and sort it out, or Neptune can cause Saturn massive confusion. Just before 1917, at the turn of the century, you would have heard of Freud.
Of course.
Right. Have you heard of his son, Edward Bernays?
Yes. Yes, I
He
have.
wrote a book called Propaganda.
Yes,
He
absolutely.
was a co-founder of Tavistock, which
Mm.
still exists today.
Yes.
Okay, so in Britain, they were working with propaganda. How,
Mm.
how can we change the common people's view so
Mm.
that we can do what we want to do, basically.
Yeah.
And we think this is a build up to World War One, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is also a build up to the Saturn Neptune conjunction.
Yes.
Now,
Okay.
what happened in 1917 at that conjunction in America, it was a thing happened. It was called, what's it called? I think it was called Creeley. The Creeley, I've got the chart. What they did in America was they systemized propaganda.
Right.
It was already happening. It was birthed in the UK, but it was systemized in America.
Okay.
And now, I think it was Woodrow Wilson was the president at the time. So now they were telling the American people using propaganda what to think, what to be excited about, who the enemy was.
Yeah.
Now, so this is really very informative. It's a very informative transit for all of us.
Right.
So you can imagine, we don't know at the moment if we're in World War III or not. People are suffering right now in confusion. People that I'm speaking to, they don't know. They say, we hear about misinformation, Neptunian. We hear lies, Neptunian. All war is deceit, Neptune. Gamblers, if you're gambling, you're resonating with Neptune.
Yes.
If you're a great artist, you are. If you're a spiritual person, Neptune. You know, it's like there's a beauty. A planet will have an energy, and the energy can manifest in different ways.
Yes. Got it. Okay.
So
Yep.
these are the energies we're dealing with.
Huge
Now,
energies.
yeah. Now, Saturn is referred to as a major malefic because the outer planets were not looked at in, say, Hellenistic time or even in medieval times. Right?
Yeah.
Saturn was the end of the cosmos, basically, and Saturn's rings, our boundaries.
Okay.
Boundaries, like it rules our skin.
Right. Okay. So
Neptune is invading our
the
thoughts,
confusion.
depending on the house. The confusion, yeah.
Okay.
But it's also the birth of a beautiful art form. So, you know.
Beautiful. And it's cyclical, isn't it? It's not like this is the end point. It's like this has come in 1917. It's come in the 1980s when the Berlin Wall came down. Here it is again. And so we need to know how to ride that, isn't it? Is that what I'm
we definitely need to know how to ride that. And so what I think is what I'd like to share in a very positive fashion, right, is not to ignore the, oh gosh, we're at war, because we can all see what's going on in the media, the propaganda. You know, we are bombarded with information that contradicts each other, where, you know, everything is just being thrown up in the air.
Yeah.
But if it also offers us an opportunity. So if we can recognize the terrain, but we can come at the terrain knowing that we are a part of everything, so we are empowered. We matter. We look at the areas of our life through the chart. We absolutely, now we have an idea of what went before, just from a couple of examples, and there are many more. Okay, but they're quite poignant examples. I think we're starting to get a feel for how these two planets are together. Now, I think if anyone has looked at my profile on SoulAdvisor, you will have discovered that I talk about 3 points, basically. The first one being stress and what that means. The second one is to understand your terrain. And the third one is to then, from that point, we open it up to a lot of empowerment, self-empowerment and empowering others. But the first one is always stress. Why? Stress is good. Stress motivates us. Stress shows us where there's an incongruence in something we're thinking or something we're believing, and yet the outer doesn't quite match what we're, the inner. The outer's not matching the inner. So that's why that's the first point. Now, to deal with that first point, we always come to the breath. And the breath is probably the most important thing. If you get nothing else out of this talk today, to breathe is to make that connection. You cannot do anything until you breathe. Now, I know, Kate, that's your special area with your many years in yoga, breathing, and the work that you've done in that area. So I know that you have said that you will have a link to perhaps some breath work down below.
We'll do a 15-minute breath work, which will help people ground themselves in this time and to really feel into the stress that they're experiencing and be very, very present so that they're able to be open to the messages that are available for them through your work and through astrology in general. Yeah. And then, yes, carry on, because I guess you're now about to invite everybody to our next stage.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes. So what we were thinking, Kate, was to follow this up with a question and answer, a community gathering, if you will, that would start with some breath work. And then we would start to look and go deeper with your questions, the things that are most important to you about this transit, what's going on in your life, and share it as a community and look at the astrology. So I'll be there to answer those questions astrologically.
It's fabulous. And I guess
and with a therapy.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be a very beautiful session because, as you've pointed out so well, everybody comes from a different angle. That's what a zodiac is. It's like a kaleidoscope of possibilities, a whole lot of different eyeballs looking at the same thing, experiencing it in an entirely different way. So what better thing than to come together in our community and explore that with your lead. So yes, we'll start that off with the breath work, which will help ground and just consolidate our presence to that experience. And I think it's really good probably to just talk a little bit about what the invitation of this cycle is, Mena, so that people can be thinking deeply about how it's affecting them before they come to that session. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So I'm going to bring up a chart, share some charts again so that I can show that. Yes. And if I can just say, okay, so if you can just imagine for a moment that you have done your breath work, that you are a part of everything and everything is a part of you.
Wow.
So when we are a part of everything, what that means is we have access to everything. Every one of us is important because without you, Kate, my life is affected. Without me, your life is affected. Without everyone who's viewing this, because and the astrology chart proves this. It's evidence of this. And when you start using astrology and you go, how can these sigils on here show who I am so accurately? That's why people start thinking it's determinism. I don't share that at all. I think it's empowerment. So when you know that and you have a sense of that, then your breath work takes you to that.
Beautiful.
From that point, it's your anxiety dissipates because anxiety requires a physical response. When you're anxious, you're tense, but when you're relaxed, you're not tense. It's very hard to be anxious without being tense. So, I mean, I always think of Tony Robbins when I think this, because he does a little exercise that if you're feeling anxious, you just stand up. Yay! Okay. When you move your body, your feelings follow.
Yes.
My breath is the most important. Absolutely. So now, what are we going to do with Saturn and Neptune in transit? How is it different to you than it is for me? Area of your chart.
Yeah.
And you now recognize, because you've had 2.5 years of Saturn showing you examples of where the illusions are. This is not it's culminating at the 0 point Aries.
Okay.
But we've had 2.5 years of Saturn helping us with the Neptune transit in that house. So what is the most confusing part of your life at the moment? Because if you cast your chart, you'll probably find that is the area that this transit's happening in, or that it is triggering the house where your Saturn and or Neptune are natally. So there will be different We won't go into all of that. Astrology gets technical. But basically, where is your illusion?
Thank you. Yeah. So that's really a big deep dive we're inviting everybody to go on before we get together again. And it will be interesting to hear how that was for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's the second question? The invitation, I guess.
Okay. So once you feel you're confused and you go, wow, I'm confused. Now, what is confusion and what can you do about confusion? Right. So whenever we're learning something new, we always have to go through a confused state because we don't know. So we're dealing with uncertainty. So confusion can be a really good thing. It can mean you're about to learn something. As long as you don't stop it and go, oh no, I have to run back because I know this way. Because uncertainty, we all need uncertainty, but it can also be frightening, especially to fixed signs who have their certain ways about them. And we all have fixed signs in different houses. So what happens if you are a stubborn Leo, you know, and all of a sudden you've got to deal with a nebulous Neptune?
Yes.
You know, I've noticed some people, if they have a tendency towards OCD habits, I'm not saying full-blown OCD, but, you know, oh, I feel better if I just check the door twice, or, you know, I'm not saying 50 times, so it's a huge problem. But quite often, you might notice that you're doing things like this because you feel so out of control and uncertain about your present and your future that you're trying to put something in place. Invitation, because this is 0 degrees of Aries, it's a world point.
Yes.
And Saturn is about responsibility.
Yes.
There's an astrologer, Anne Ortley. She's wonderful, gorgeous, beautiful woman. And she repetitively says, do your Saturn. Do your Saturn. Everything will be okay if you do your Saturn. Okay. So I think that's a good message for all of us right now. So what are you willing to do? Follow your heart, because you know this is not new to you. You've been going through it for 2.5 years. We all have an idea about what we're supposed to do right now.
Yes.
And don't let anything stand in your way. And if something is standing in your way, that's where the hypnotherapy comes in. Okay, because you won't know that until you know it. And there are techniques that I can share with you when we have our question and answer, if you like, or you can book a session with me. I promise you, it's a lot more simple than you think. It is. You will expect that it will be years. I will show you things can happen in minutes.
Fantastic. Okay? I love that.
Just think, bring your questions and just think, okay, what am I going to do? What do I feel drawn to do? What am I prepared to do? What's my Saturn telling me? For everybody, including me, to do. Whether you do it or not, whether you're, just think about it, entertain the idea. So bring questions. I think that's probably a key thing.
Yeah. I love that. And it's an open invitation because, life is not easy. Life is complex. Life is full of fascination and full of storylines. And it's so exciting that we're able to explore those together and gain some kind of insight into where we're not letting it flow, I guess, and what kind of tools we might utilize to help it on its way. So I really, really appreciate, Mena, your time today. There's lots included in this.
Astrology is a big subject.
It's all about the whole world, the whole universe, the planets, etc., etc. So we could go on for days and decades, but let's leave it there and extend this open invitation to everybody to join us. Thank you, Mena, and I will see you in a couple of weeks, and we can keep going because if we can establish some kind of a dialogue that we continue on with now, not only for this particular conjunction, but other conjunctions, then that's going to serve us all.
I would love to. You speak to any astrologer, Kate, and they're very, very excited about astrology. It's a gift. So
it's a real gift, and you've applied yourself to that gift with such vigor. So thank you so much for being so generous with your insights. Thank you, Mena.
Thank you, Kate. Bye.
Bye.